I want to tell you about the last sound I heard before everything went wrong. It wasn't a scream. It wasn't a crash. It was something much worse. It was my own voice, coming from the tree line, 60 yards away, in the dark, calling my name. Picture this. I work as a fire watcher, months alone in the wilderness. It is what the job requires. I am alone in a remote forestry watch cottage, somewhere in the northern wilderness. My job is simple. Monitor the radio twice a day. Log the weather. Watch for smoke on the horizon. That's it. 6 months. No visitors. No roads in once winter sets in. Just me, the trees, and 300 miles of nothing in every direction. I am standing on the cottage step at dusk. Last light check before I go in for the night. The forest is doing what it always does. Nothing. The tree line sits 60 yards out. Dark spruce, black against a grey sky. No wind, no movement. And then, from somewhere inside that tree line, I hear my name. My full name. Said quietly. Not shouted. Said the way someone says your name when they already know they have your attention. I don't move. I tell myself it's the wind distorting something. A bird. Acoustics. The kind of tricks an isolated mind plays on itself after 6 weeks of silence. I answered cautiously. Hello? Who is there? Nothing. The tree line doesn't move. The forest gives nothing back. Just that same dense silence. The kind that feels less like absence and more like something holding its breath. Then it happens again. My own voice. From the trees. Saying my name. I go inside. I lock the door. Before we begin, last time I left you with a frozen camp and 25 people. No tracks in the snow, starving dogs on their chains. A grave dug open from the inside. You had to decide. The answer is real. 25 people vanished from that camp. No bodies were ever recovered. The official verdict was migration. A desperate move in search of better hunting grounds. But the loaded rifle was never explained. The chained dogs were never explained. And the opened grave was never explained. Some of you may know this case by another name. The lost village of Anjikuni. A disappearance that has never been fully resolved and never forgotten. But here is where it gets complicated. Decades later, investigators went back to the record. Journalists, researchers, people who wanted the truth. And what they found was this. No official documentation of the investigation ever surfaced. No police reports. No witness testimony beyond the original account. No corroboration from nearby settlements. Some concluded the story was fabricated entirely. Built from nothing. A ghost story dressed up as a news report. So was it real? Or was the answer itself the fake? That is the thing about this format. Sometimes the mystery is not what happened. Sometimes the mystery is whether anything happened at all. But that frozen camp is behind us now. What I have for you today happened not on ice, but in the deep wilderness. Not to 25 people, but to one man. I do not sleep that night. I sit with my back to the wall, facing the door, the lamp burning low on the table beside me. I tell myself I am being rational, that I heard something in the dark and my mind did what isolated minds do. Filled the silence with something familiar. My own voice. I tell myself this until morning. When the light comes, I do my radio check. Static. Then the operator's voice. Routine, normal. I give my weather report, wind speed, cloud cover, visibility. I do not mention the tree line. I do not mention what I heard. What would I say? I eat breakfast. I do my rounds. I check the horizon for smoke the way I always do. The forest is still. The sky is flat and grey. The tree line sits where it always sits. 60 yards out. Black spruce. No movement. Nothing. By midday, I have almost convinced myself. Almost. I go back inside before dusk. I tell myself it is because the temperature is dropping. I tell myself it is the sensible thing to do. A man alone in the wilderness learns to respect the cold, learns to respect the dark. But the truth is simpler than that. I do not want to be standing on that step when the light goes. I lock the door. I sit down at the table. The lamp burns. Outside the window, the forest goes dark the way it always does. Slowly, then all at once. I watch the tree line until I can no longer see it. Then I listen. Wind in the upper branches, the creak of the cottage settling in the cold. My own breathing. Nothing else. I tell myself this is what I wanted. Silence. Nothing. Proof that last night was nothing. And then, from somewhere outside, I hear it again. I do not move. I sit at the table with my hands flat on the surface, and I listen. My own voice. Outside. In the dark. Saying my name the way it said it the night before. Quietly. Deliberately. Like it has all the time in the world. I glance at the door. Locked. I glance at the window. Dark. I stand up slowly. I move to the window. I press close to the glass and look out toward the tree line. I can see nothing. The darkness beyond the lamp's reach is absolute. The kind of darkness that gives nothing back. But something is out there. I can feel it the way you feel a presence in a room before you see it. A displacement. A weight in the air that was not there before. My name again. My own voice. Closer this time. I step back from the window. I think about the radio. I think about keying the handset and telling the operator what I'm hearing. I think about what he would say. What anyone would say. A man alone for weeks in the wilderness, hearing his own voice in the dark. There is a word for that. Several words. None of them good. I do not go to the radio. Instead, I check the lock on the door. Still locked. I check the window latch. Secured. I check the second window at the back of the cottage. It is open. Not wide. An inch. Maybe 2. Enough to let the cold in. Enough to let sound in. I stand there looking at it. I know I closed it. I close it every night before dark. It is part of my routine. As fixed as the radio check. As fixed as the weather log. I close it now. I latch it. I stand in the middle of the cottage and I turn slowly. Everything is exactly as it should be. The lamp on the table. My plate from dinner. My jacket on the hook by the door. The radio on its shelf. The chair I was sitting in pushed back at the angle I left it. Everything exactly as it should be. Except on the table, beside the lamp, is my notebook. Open. I did not leave it open. I moved toward it slowly. The lamp throws a circle of yellow light across the page. I look down at the open page. One line, in my own handwriting. You should not have answered. I stare at the page for a long time. My own handwriting. I know it the way I know my own face, the slant of the letters, the way I form the S, the pressure of the pen on the page. It is mine. I did not write it. I turn every page of the notebook, looking for something I missed, an earlier entry I forgot, a note I made in half sleep, something that explains this. The pages are all mine. Weather observations, radio schedules, notes to myself about the equipment. And then this. You should not have answered. I sit down. I think about the window, open by an inch. I think about my voice in the trees. I think about the way it said my name. Not shouted, not called, said. The way you say something to someone who is already listening. I think about what answering means. Before I came out here, I was given a briefing by the Forestry Service. Routine information, equipment, protocols, emergency procedures. The man who gave the briefing was thorough, professional. He covered everything methodically, everything except one thing. At the end of the briefing, he paused. He looked at me for a moment in a way that did not fit the rest of the conversation. And then he said, "If you hear something out there that sounds familiar, don't engage with it." I asked him what he meant. He said it again. The same words. Exactly. If you hear something out there that sounds familiar, don't engage with it. Then he moved on, back to protocols, back to equipment, as if he had not said it at all. I did not think about it again until now. I sit in the cottage with the notebook open in front of me, and I think about the man who had this posting before me. I think about whether he sat in this same chair, whether he heard the same thing I heard, whether he answered, whether he is still out there in the trees, saying his own name. I do not sleep for 3 days. I monitor the radio. I file my weather reports. I do my rounds in daylight only, moving fast, staying close to the cottage. I do not linger at dusk. I do not stand on the step after dark. I do not answer. On the 4th night it stops. No voice from the tree line, no sound beyond the normal sounds of the wilderness at night. Wind, branch creak, the distant call of something animal and explicable. I sit at the table and I wait. Nothing. On the 5th night. Nothing. The 6th. I begin to breathe again. I begin to tell myself it is over, that whatever it was, exhaustion, isolation, the particular madness that comes from too much silence, it has passed. I'm still here. I'm intact. I did not go outside. I did not answer. On the 7th night, I wake at 3 in the morning. The lamp has burned out. The cottage is dark. I lie still, orienting myself. The familiar sounds, the cold, the weight of the dark pressing against the windows. And then, knocking at the door. 3 knocks, slow, deliberate, spaced apart the way a person knocks when they are not in a hurry, when they know you're home, when they are prepared to wait. I do not move. 3 more knocks, same rhythm, same patience. I lie in the dark and I think about the briefing, about the man who looked at me and said, "Don't engage with it." I think about the notebook, about my own handwriting forming words I did not write. I think about what is standing on the other side of that door, using my knuckles. The knocking stops. Silence. Then, from directly outside the door, inches away, my own voice. You should have stayed inside. I do not move until morning. When the light comes, I radio the forestry service. I do not tell them about the voice. I do not tell them about the knocking. I do not tell them about the notebook. I ask instead about the man who held this posting before me. Casually, the way you ask about something that does not matter. The operator pauses. He tells me the previous watcher completed his posting and returned home. Routine. No incidents reported. I ask his name. Another pause. Longer this time. He gives me a name. It is my name. Not the same name. My name. First and last. Identical in every part. I sit with the handset in my hand and I think about coincidence. About how common names can be. About how a forestry service covering thousands of miles of wilderness might easily, over the years, post two men with the same name to the same station. I think about this for a long time. Then I ask the operator how long ago that posting was. He tells me, 19 years ago. I ask if the man is still alive. The operator does not answer immediately. I can hear the static on the line, the distance between us measured in silence. He says he does not have that information. I thank him. I sign off. I set the handset down. I sit in the cottage for the rest of the day without moving from the chair. I think about 19 years. I think about a man with my name sitting in the same cottage, hearing what I heard, whether he answered, whether he went outside, whether some part of him never left. At dusk I do my final rounds. I move quickly. I keep my eyes forward. I do not look at the tree line. I do not look at the tree line. When I get back to the step, I stop. The notebook is outside, on the step, open. I did not bring it outside. I look at the page. One line. My handwriting. He didn't leave either. I go inside. I lock the door. I do not come out until my replacement arrives 6 weeks later. I never take another posting. I have told you what I found. A voice from the tree line. My own voice. Saying my name. A window open by an inch in the middle of the night. A notebook I did not open. Words I did not write. Knocking at the door. 3 knocks. Patient, unhurried. A previous watcher with my name. 19 years gone. A forestry service that could not tell me if he was still alive. And 2 lines in my own handwriting that I cannot explain. You should not have answered. He didn't leave either. But here is the thing about evidence. It can always be read 2 ways. The voice in the trees, a mind fracturing under the weight of isolation. 6 weeks of silence will do things to a person. Things that are well documented, things that have names. The open window, a latch I failed to secure, a routine I thought was fixed but wasn't. The notebook, written in half sleep, in a state I cannot remember, by a man who was not sleeping enough and knew it. The knocking, wind, the structure of the cottage settling in the cold, the particular acoustics of a wilderness night pressing against a door. The previous watcher with my name, coincidence, a common name, a large country, a forestry service spanning decades. And then there is the simplest explanation of all. Local people know these forests. They know the postings. They know that a man alone in the wilderness for weeks is a man whose grip on certainty has loosened. A prank, elaborate perhaps, cruel certainly, but human, entirely human. Someone who knew my name, who knew the cottage, who came out into the dark and used both against me. Every detail has an explanation, a rational, reasonable, ordinary explanation. And yet, I never take another posting. I have not said my own name out loud since I left that cottage. I do not know why. I only know that some part of me, the part that sat in the dark and did not open the door, that part is still not sure what was standing outside. And it never answered again, because I never gave it the chance. Beneath all of it, was this story inspired by real events? A man alone in the wilderness, a voice in the dark, something that knew his name, something that waited? Or is this a story built entirely from isolation and dread and the particular terror of hearing yourself in the dark? That is what you need to decide. Real or fake, you decide.